poetry, editorials, artwork, recipes. Those are just some of the things that you can find in the latest edition of The Inside Scoop. The publication is issued by the John Howard Society, and it features works submitted by men and women who are incarcerated across Canada. The Inside Scoop's latest edition will be celebrated at a launch party later tonight at XQ's in the West End. But before that, we're joined live in the Classic 107 studios by Anna Sigrithur. Anna is the literacy coordinator with the John Howard Society of Manitoba and is the organizer, or one of the organizers, of the Inside Scoop. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
We touched a little bit on this in the introduction, but maybe you can speak to more detail about what our listeners can find inside the Inside Scoop.
Yeah, so I mean, the Inside Scoop is we call it a literary magazine, but it's really featuring writing and artwork. As you say, it's by presently and formerly incarcerated Manitobans, as well as people outside of Manitoba. And it's got quite a depth of content inside of it. It's got poetry. It's got, we have some new sections that I can talk about a little bit later, because this is a relaunch. We have artwork, we have first-person stories, we have fiction, some storytelling, kind of like Indigenous storytelling. So it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of what you can find inside of it.
What is your role when you are thinking about what the content will be in a publication like this? How are you deciding what is included, and how do you influence the creation of pieces?
Right. So, I mean, the Inside Scoop has been published for quite a while, and heretofore it's been mostly just, we kind of publish what we receive on a rolling basis, and there hasn't been a lot. I mean, there has been some editorial process, but it's been fairly light. What we're trying to do now is we're trying to think about our audience. We're trying to think about, we have two really, really different audiences. We have people who are incarcerated or who have maybe recently been incarcerated and they're working with us, with the John Howard Society in some way in one of our programs. Or there are people who are, community members of all stripes, maybe people who don't have an experience of incarceration. And we're trying to think about the types of pieces and the types of storytelling and the types of ways of sort of connecting people that could speak to both of these audiences. And that's a bit of a challenge, but I think the key is it has to be specific, it has to be first person, it has to be humanizing, and it can't be sort of like, we're not here to stereotype or glorify. We're here just to like make this be an interesting human interest publication. Something
that everybody can engage with on some level. You mentioned that there are some new features in this latest edition of the Inside Scoop for people who have maybe read the publication before. What can people expect inside this latest edition? And you've brought a beautiful edition with you here to the Classic 107 studios as well.
I wish that I had this is just a proof, but I wish we just got them delivered yesterday. They look so good from the printer shop. So yeah, we have a couple new sections, and I should really credit. We have we're really lucky to be working with Ben Waldman, who's a free press reporter. He's a volunteer editor for this publication, and he's been really good at helping us think through how can we kind of ramp up our print journalism, sort of creating new magazine sections, new columns, this kind of stuff. So one of the things that we're doing that we're really excited about is a section called Dream Canteen. And Dream Canteen is the idea that when people are incarcerated at various correctional institutions, they do have access to a canteen, which is like a little shop where you can purchase things like toiletries or some snacks. It's really, really limited depending on where you are. It's limited across the board. So we thought that this would be kind of a good way to do that connection that I was talking about. So where people on the inside can say, here's what I would get at a canteen if I could get anything. And what that does is that allows them to be express themselves and also be we don't get this. And then people on the outside can say, wow, that's something that you don't have access to. In this issue, one person wanted false eyelashes.
Oh.
And we were like, cool. That should be something they could get at a canteen, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it's so interesting to open that window into incarcerated life for somebody who might not be familiar with that experience. Maybe you can shed a little bit more light as well as to who some of these writers are as people who are contributing to the Inside Scoop.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so a lot of the contributors to the magazine are people who have been to a John Howard literacy class. We teach every week at the Winnipeg Revamped Center. We're currently the only outside agency that is allowed to come into the remand center and provide any kind of programming, because this is a place where people are, it's pre-incarceration, they're being held awaiting trial or awaiting release. But still, sometimes people are there for quite a long time. So we do, I would say, encounter and come face to face with a lot of people through our remand classes, because people do tend to sort of like move through remand as they're then sent to other places. So a lot of the contributors know about the Inside Scoop from our class there. A lot of them also are people who have been in community classes. So we teach also out in the community. We teach a class at Purpose Construction, which is a social enterprise that teaches construction job training skills to formerly incarcerated folks. And then just, there's a bunch of people who just hear about the Scoop because it's been out over the years, and whether or not they're currently or they're formerly incarcerated. Yeah.
Wow. What do you talked a little bit about the Dream Canteen as an example of something that people might write about or share their experience from prison or from a remand center. What else can you talk about as far as the subject matter of some of these pieces?
Yeah. So another new thing that we're trying to do for this relaunch is to create themes for the issue. So the theme for this new relaunch issue is called Where We're From. So all of the pieces are kind of geared around this general idea of either who we are as a person, maybe outside or beyond having a sort of contact with the criminal justice system, or place, geographic place. There's one really, really great story here, our feature story, that is a writer named Timmy talks about kind of his journeys across Manitoba, visiting different places, kind of through northern Manitoba, and then working his way down to Winnipeg, and grappling with his own personal journey to processing grief and processing, his own experiences with his family and with loved ones.
In your work with inmates and incarcerated people, I'm wondering what you see the experience of writing, what it does for inmates. How does that how do these avenues of expression interact with their lives, and what does it maybe do for them as they contemplate the next chapter of their life after they're released?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think that's kind of like the guiding question of the work that we do, which is, people, one of the main functions of prison, whether intentional or not, is to isolate people and to kind of strip away their agency. You're really locking people in a cage. And so anything that we're doing with the John Howard Society is trying to connect people on the inside and make them feel less isolated, give them channels to communicate. And so the Inside Scoop is a key tool for that. And so when people write, they literally are expressing their voice, through the paper. I should also say through artwork. The artwork is incredibly self-expressive as well, and people are always really, really excited to see each other's artwork. But yeah, I think it gives people a sense of agency. One of the contributors to this issue, Winston, who is incarcerated, he calls a lot just because he wants to chat, and we love chatting with Winston. And he's when I've been talking to him lately, he's really, really, really excited that his words, his writing, and also his artwork are published. That is meaningful, and it gives people a sense of pride, which I feel that too when I publish something that I write.
Of course. The publication gets its official release tonight, as we mentioned, at a celebration at XQ's. What do the contributors know about that sort of release, and what are their reactions to having? You talked about Winston's experience. How are they feeling that their work is going to be out in the world?
I think they're all really, really excited. We're lucky to have 4 of the contributors giving readings tonight at XQ's. So 2 of them are going to be via audio recording because they're currently incarcerated, and then 2 will be live in person. So those 4, I think, are really excited and feel proud, and all of the things, that their work is being celebrated in this way. And then other writers, this is one of the challenges of working with folks who are incarcerated, is that it's really, really hard to know sometimes where they are, how to contact them. If we met them in a remand class and then they get sent to a provincial correctional institution, we don't necessarily know exactly where they are. So this is kind of one of the strange kind of missing links in the chain. Is people will submit something, we'll do our best to contact them and work with them on edits, but if we can't find them, then they might just see their piece in the Inside Scoop.
Mm-hmm. When people read this new edition of the Inside Scoop, what do you think that they're going to take away about the experience of the authors that are contained in there? Is it going to be something of surprise? I know that you were talking before about breaking down stereotypes as well. What do you think people will take away from seeing these creations in print?
I hope that, for people coming to it with stereotypes, I hope it does help them challenge that. I also just hope that it showcases that, no matter what somebody's current life situation is, and, whether or not that includes conflict with the law, there's talent, there's humanity, there's self-expression, and there's memories, there's histories, there's hope. And, the issue, again, where we're from, is named after a poem format that our literacy instructor, John Sampson Fellows, teaches at his classes. And the poem is called I Am From. And what it does, it asks people to list kind of these concrete details of their lives. And they're peppered throughout the issue. And I think they do a really good job of just painting these little small vignettes into somebody's world. And, these is a diverse group of people, for sure.
Yeah. One last question for the brass tacks. If people want their own copy of Where We're From, this latest edition of the Inside Scoop, where can they grab one?
So we have it available online. So you can find it at John Howard Society of Manitoba's website. I believe it just has its own page, the Inside Scoop. So there's digital copies there. You can read online. There's also, I think, a copy where you can print it out yourself. As for print copies, we do focus our distribution on correctional institutions, but we do put some copies at McNally Robinson at Grant Park, and we put some copies at the University of Winnipeg. We put some copies at various community organizations around. We'll be giving some to Spence Neighborhood. We'll be giving some to Onashawewin. So, you can also just contact us, and if you want a print copy, we can get you one.
Excellent. We'll link to that on our website, classic107.com. Anna, thank you so much for joining us here in the Classic 107 studios and telling us more about the Inside Scoop in this latest edition, Where We're From.
Thanks so much for having me.